Stellaris Resettlement, that we will love, or as they call it, Dev Diary 191, and yet it moves. So what's this about? It's about automated colony management. It's about automatic resettling of pops. It's about new bonuses depending on the stage of your colony. It's about resettlement in general. The interface gets changed as well. It's about changed costs that include influence. But don't worry too much. We'll come to that. It's about transit hubs. It's about consumed worlds. First thing, they describe the improvements to automated colony management. A major parse has been done there. So what will it do? It will upgrade capital buildings whenever possible. Will otherwise generally try to build or upgrade from its list if there are less than 3 open jobs. They've erred a bit on the side of caution, so it's currently extremely opposed to running deficits. It may require manual intervention if, for example, your energy credits per month are negative, but we figured it was better to leave those sorts of risky economic decisions in the player's hands. The script will attempt to build, for example, a forge world for a hive empire. There are less than 3 free jobs. There's nothing currently in the build queue. It will check to see if there's anything it can build. It has a tendency to favor districts over buildings. That's a normal process. You usually go for districts first, buildings second, and the AI actually has that preference now too. The same goes for blockers. They are a fairly low priority for planetary automation. Will only be cleared if they are blocking a district slot that actively wants to be constructed, or if there are no district slots remaining. So it acts as you mostly act as a player, which is good. Buildings, on the other hand, will be upgraded if there are no other things that the AI wants to build right now. It can upgrade without causing resource deficits, and there are pops available that would want to work there. So they wait for some unemployed pops and then build it. So they don't pre-build. So that's the advantage that you have from your micro, that you can go for risks and that you can pre-build. And that's a pretty significant advantage. On the other hand, making this something carefree is pretty important, and that's what they've done with that. If it works like that, it will be pretty handy for all of those people that in the late game just want to plop down colonies and don't worry about them anymore. Then there are amenity crisis exceptions. What are these exceptions? These exceptions will intervene if a planet's amenities are -5 or below, and it's either not an ecomonopolis, or if it is an ecomonopolis, it is either totally full or you're running low on exotic gases. Based on ethics and authority, it will pick one of the amenity buildings to add to the queue. So it wants to fix some of the deficits itself. A few jobs have gotten a bit of a touch-up during this pass. Notable examples include the urban world, which now has a trade value bonus, and the colony, which is now intended to satisfy the needs of a newly colonized world rather than provide pop growth bonuses. Because they felt pop growth bonuses were just too unbalanced. And of course, with a new resettlement system, you could just go for the colony designation and use this to basically build pops. Just build all pop buildings there and then just take away the pops as they come. So it can stay a colony for forever, and you're just using this as a spawning point for pops. And that was probably what they wanted to stop with that. So let's see. We have the urban world. The urban world has -10% city district cost. Quite nice. Industrial district cost also -10%. City district build speed +25%. And trade value +20%. All makes sense. Cost reduction, build speed, trade value, everything nicely done. On the other hand, then, we have a colony. To develop, it will have 5 stability, 10 amenities, and 10% more happiness. So it targets all the weakness you get at the start of colony. Low weakness, low amenities, and low stability. And kind of alleviates that, which is also a very good thing to have there. There is an inherent terror of deficits for the AI, so the automated scripts tend to be a little bit more conservative than the players may be. He personally has enjoyed that because the mental burden was eased in the late game colonies. So in our dev multiplayer games, he's saying, I've been making a point of using colony automation as much as possible in order to get a feel for what it's doing. Except the capital. He admits that I do manual build that so I can take care of sudden shifts in priority. Yeah, I mean, I love micro, but I also love that there's an opportunity for, especially the late game, when you just want to plop down 10 colonies, then it definitely helps to have that, especially if you're like going in multiplayer and you don't want people to wait for you forever. Just say, oh no, let's play on slow speed now. That's probably not fun. So when can you use the planetary automation? The colony needs to be in a sector, a non-frontier sector, in order to use either sector or planetary automation. You need to have no energy deficit, and you should have resources in the automation pool for it to use. So these pools for the resources that are on the sectors now have a definitive use there, and that is for the automation AI, even more than before. So you can give it a budget, and it will act after that budget, and that's quite nice. But now let's get to actual resettlement. So manual resettlement and the mitigation of unemployment is a huge burden in mid to late game Stellaris. Yeah, that's something they've seen, and it's absolutely true. If you have a really ripe, mature empire, you have tons of unemployment events because of very ripe and mature planets that just don't have any room anymore, but people just want to stay there because they love their family, and the great thing that you have a totally urbanized planet. So you need that manual resettlement at one point, and it will consume a lot of time. Hopefully not anymore, because for once they have adjusted that. And first, they made changes to the UI, so you instantly see which pops are unemployed and to what stratum they belong. So you have the ones that are unemployed with the lowest stratum first. That's the pops that you can most easily resettle at the lowest cost. Lowest cost. Now it comes to resettlement cost, they have been changed. They've added an influence cost to some pop types. These influence costs are nominal for worker tier pops or slave pops, but get fairly expensive when you're forcing rulers to move. As you can see, it depends on the stratum your people are in, what it costs. Resettle pop to Istad, that is slave and worker drone bio trophy resettlement, as you can see here. 50 energy or 100 energy and 10 influence. That's a lot. You might have to pay it at the start, but there's a way to alleviate that. Let's just continue for specialist and ruler resettlement. You have a whopping 250 energy and 25 influence for specialists. And for the rulers, you have 550 resettlement cost. That's crazy. So the slaves and unintelligent robots can still be moved without expanding influence, and certain civics permit you to waive these influence costs in total. For example, you have the 3 civics there, and they will be, in the late game, something very much desirable. We have the old Corvi system. It waives all influence costs for pop resettlement except for colony abandonment. A colony abandonment, we'll go to that. That's something special, and that's gonna be extra expensive. Pop growth from immigration, though, gets up by 15% as a side effect of the Corvi system. But you cannot be egalitarian, because if you're egalitarian, you cannot force your people to move. And you cannot have the free haven civic. Subsumed will, on the other hand, also waives all influence costs for drone resettlement, except for colony abandonment. Empire sprawl from pops goes down 20% for the hive minds. And the same goes for the machine empires. Drone resettlement has no influence cost, and the empire sprawl goes down by 20%. So it has really two good effects. The Corvi system is kind of okay, and it's specialized, and the subsumed will and OTA updates for the hive mind and the machine empire, they are pretty great, I'd say, especially for the late game. Minus 20% empire sprawl is nothing to sneeze at from pops in the late game. And that's when you will need these civics too. Despite their best efforts, the servitors still haven't found a good way to get their bio trophies to shift their consciousness to a different planet using the OTA updates. So you still have to pay for them. So that might be a problem for now, but there might be a solution coming later. Manually resettling the last pop of a colony you own carries an additional influence surcharge in the dev build for now. There will be very likely an exception made for doomed planets and holy worlds that are risking initiating a war with a fallen empire. A planetary decision to abandon a recently conquered planet is under consideration, though it will likely use displacement purging to do so. with the diplomatic penalties associated with it. For example, that removing the last pop costs 200 influence in that case. And then it comes to the greater good line. Greater than ourselves. That is a decision in federations that you can activate in the galactic community and then use for your egalitarian empire, which gives the egalitarian empire a way of handling resettlement without forcing it on their pops. They will pop around. In greater than ourselves, the pops will move around automatically, finding a job on other planets if there's something free and if they are currently unemployed. They will also seek for higher habitability planets, for example. But they've come up with a way for every empire to have some easier access to a similar effect to that. Not as strong, but something good, with a new starbase building that will handle it. And it makes sense. It makes sense. Unlocked by the Hyperlane Breach Points tech. And the Hyperlane Registrar has moved to interstellar economics then. It's called the Transit Hub. And it's pretty useful. Dedicated infrastructure for a non-military vessel is enabling a smooth and convenient transit network. As you can see, unemployed worker and drone pops from this system will, unless subjected to other migration controls, automatically migrate to other planets with decent habitability, free housing and jobs in systems which have transit hubs. So you can have a migration network there, and I really like this solution because it gives you a real reason, not only for protection, to put your space stations near inhabited planets. This transit hub will operate as a limited variant of greater than ourselves, moving unemployed low strata pops between planets that are in systems with transit hubs. This will allow movement within a system as well, for example if you have a bunch of habitats in a single system. They're investigating ways to expand the scope of pops it's willing to move. The original worker limitation was put in place because while a worker could promote themselves to fill any free job, a slave or specialist might find themselves restricted from the free job on the new planet. So, if you have a slave, apparently it will not use the transit hub. So, slaves you have to move around manually still. And the same goes for specialists. If it works without performance concerns, the transit hub will prioritize high strata unemployment and then move down the ranks. So preferred shipment for these. Building out the transit network does function best when you have a developed starbase above most of your colonies, since it will only move pops between nodes of the network, of course. Tangentially related, they have also changed the bonuses for the governments to give each authority type a unique bonus. So Democratic still 10 years to select a new ruler, but pop demotion time down 25%. Can be very useful, especially when coupled with egalitarian things. That makes absolutely sense. Then we have oligarchic, holds an election every 20 years still. The empire modifier has faction influence gain plus 15%, so it kind of balances out with the egalitarian democratic empires. And I think it's a very strong bonus. Oligarchic has always been very strong. This is no exception. If you go and pander the influence gain from factions, then you're very well off with oligarchic now. You have dictatorial, that now decreases the edict cost by 25%, and imperial, which in turn increases the edict capacity by +1. So you have these bonuses and your edicts become either cheaper or you have more edicts. It's both pretty good. Especially the edict cost is great at the start, especially the edict capacity is fine a little bit later. There will be other changes going on that have significant effects on the number of unemployed pops in the late game. I'm suspecting maybe something military will go towards that way. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll have them go to the military. Your people think. Armies, spaceships. The empire type that perhaps faced the most obnoxious burden of frequent manual resettlement were the terror wars, the lithoid devouring swarms. They sometimes created pops on the consumption world, and as a quality of life improvement, when they finished the planet off, they now resettled them back to the capital. Since Gestalts can also use the transit hub, building that is highly recommended for terror wars, to send those drones some place where they can be of use. And also the pesky red habitability planet marker will be removed from completely consumed planets. that was unnecessarily cluttering your map. As you can see here, in the world consumed, all drones have been evacuated to Praku Central. They also have an ongoing feedback thread. If you choose to go for the patch 2.8.1, it's an optional beta patch that you can manually opt in to access. Not all of the changes are in yet, but the changes are rolling in as these dev diaries come out, and you can test them out there. I'm really happy with these changes. They show that Paradox cares about especially also the late game problems that can be very obnoxious. So we'll have also fun in the late game and might have a better flow going with all the migration options and resettlement options that we have going there. Next week there will be something about more economic balance changes, and I'm looking forward to that as well. I'm still waiting for pop growth changes, to be honest, but there might be something to the trade system, because the trade system, I don't know, I feel it lacks something. It could be better. So have a great time until next time, and happy gaming. This is Immanuel Can signing out. See you soon and happy gaming.